Hey everybody, this is Miss Carmen and you are watching the debrief of my music video, Greatness. I am here today with a few friends of mine. As you can see, we've got Kelly Mays. She is a representative from Haven nonprofit organization. We've got the artist K Rose from the Wave movement. We've seen her in a couple of my projects. We also have a recording artist, Lakia Nicole, cornrows and locks, hair extraordinaire, and also a fellow domestic violence survivor. So we're going to be talking about some of the images in the video and just kind of unpacking what I presented in the video for Greatness. So I wanted to be very clear that I am a domestic violence survivor and that the things and the topics that I talked about in that song, Greatness, they really did happen to me. I suffered verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and unfortunately physical abuse as well. So I want you to understand that when you are seeing those images in the videos, that those things really did happen to me. So we're just gonna have a brief discussion about it. I suffered a lot of abuse in my life, and there got to be a point where I had to make a decision that I was going to leave and actually try to achieve what you see now as like what I call like my greatness. Like that is a real concept for me, and I do appreciate that when people hear my song, it resonates with them. And a lot of people tell me like, oh, we feel the spirit in it, we feel soul, we feel energy and light and vibes, and I'm very happy about that because that took a lot. Because there was a moment in my life in a time period where I was very suicidal, where I was being told that I was not smart, I was being beat down mentally every single day, taught to deny my natural feelings and to question everything about myself. And it had me in a very broken down state where I wanted to end my own life. And so I was in therapy one day, talking to my therapist, and she was asking me, is there a gun in the home? Just for my own safety reasons, asking, just in case that was going to be a method that I was going to choose to use to end my life. And I told her yes. So she calls up my then husband and tells him, you need to move the gun. She knows where it's at. If she knows where it's at, you need to move it. He agrees to move the gun, and I go home, and I'm feeling good. I had therapy. I was feeling great, so I didn't go home looking for the pistol or anything. And a couple days passed later, and I go to the drawer where it was at, where I thought it was moved from, and it was still right there. It was still there. And at that moment, I realized that I wasn't of value to him. Like, I was moving mountains and doing everything I could to be this perfect image of a wife, what he needed me to be. And I wasn't of value to him enough to even try to move the gun. And someone called you on the phone and told you that I was thinking about using it. So that for me was like the beginning of the end of where I had to figure out what my game plan was gonna be. So that image in the video of a good friend of mine, Thomas, thank you Thomas for doing that for us, Thomas and Jazz, when he is holding her, he's strangling her. He has his hands on her neck. And he's talking in her ear. You can't hear what he's saying, but he's just kind of emulating the slick talk. The line is, I warned you that slick talk grip on me wouldn't last. And she asked me, what do you want me to look like when this is happening? And I told her, I want you to look like you are tired. Like this is it. Like you are tired of him talking to you like this and you are ready to go. So if you rewatch that video, you can see on her face, she's almost smizing. Because it's like you can get to a point where you can get that hard shell and you can break out of that, and where his words will no longer have that effect on you. So I couldn't like that day just run about the marriage. It took years to plan an exit and to get up enough, gusto in myself to know that that was a possibility for me, that there was life after him and that he wasn't my end all and be all. So that was one of the things that I wanted to communicate in the video. And another important image that I want you guys to understand is when she's walking away and he's like pulling on her arm. Like that was a really important image for me to show, because like when I decided to leave, of course he wanted me to stay. Even though I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm all these negative things. Like I'm still his, and he wanted that control over me. And so it took a lot, but if you look at it, she's like looking into the distance. She's not even looking back or even being affected by that arm pulling on you. So I hope to encourage other women that, you know, you can also get away and move away from this situation. Any negativity, like, you don't have to deal with it. It's not okay at all.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about, and you guys can add in whatever you want, when in that journey, like I always call it a journey from victim to survivor to healer, you know, when you reclaim your voice or a little bit of your voice back. Like, talk about that process of being able to reclaim your voice through your art and what that felt like and being able to share that with others.
It started, I want to say, that poem that I wrote, that we do in greatness, I wrote that 2 days after I left him. Like, it like poured out of me. Like, it was like that first stance of here I am, who I be, finally me, finally free, I can breathe. That flew out of me. It was like it was trapped inside me, and like it was like I was trying to be that person that whole time, but that strong person didn't go with his agenda. Mm-hmm. So it's like I've just been like clawing and scratching, just trying to find her and figure out who she is. And the more I write, the more I sing. Like, if you listen to the entire project, it's a transformation. Like, all those tracks from beginning to the last song, All Hail the Queen. Like, it's a journey of like this person that figured out that, hey, wait, I'm kind of great. And then it goes through like I'm Here and Same Old Game, and just the entire album is basically the story of my journey from victim to, like you say, healer, like to survivor, and now healer, where now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. And if I can save anybody, if that video can help one person, I'm good. I'm Gucci.
It's a great testament, though, to what you've gone through and what you're surviving. Tell me a little bit how you guys use your art, you know, to help with your journeys.
Well, for myself, art is already an expression, but being confident and, like, for example, coming from a domestic violence or that type of situation, it bogs you down. Mm-hmm. But being able to develop that just authentic you, being able to express yourself freely, for all artists, that's not always the easiest thing, because you go through wondering, are people going to accept what, you know, my art? Are people going to accept my ideas, mm-hmm. what I have to say? So for me, that's a journey in itself, just finding my words, finding my expression, finding how I want to be interpreted, how I want people to see me. So,
and being okay with it.
Yeah, and being okay with it, yeah. Being the loud me, like from the video. I felt very empowered from that, because being an artist and being a new artist at that, presenting myself for the first time, it's like, it's a beautiful feeling for me, because I do feel free. I do feel confident finally enough to say, hey, you know, some people like it, some people won't. Mm-hmm. And I know, coming from situations like that, having somebody constantly in your ear tearing you down, you have to find a bigger person, mm-hmm. and say, hey, just you know, going into an audience or presenting yourself to the world, some people like, some people don't. That person doesn't like it, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Do you like it? Are you confident with your art? Do you love your art? And if you do, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So I just had to learn that as an artist. Mm-hmm.
And then I think the art keeps you from being violent.
Yeah.
You know, because you have to release what you feel.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I can scream without looking crazy. You know, I can say whatever I want to say, because people like the voice. So you like how it sounds, but you're listening to what I feel too, because the lyrics is telling the story. So, you know, it's a release, you know, because I had wrote a song, you know, one time talking about my story, and it felt good, because sometimes it's hard to talk to people.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
It's easier for me to sing it.
It is.
You know, or draw it, or act it out, you know what I'm saying, at that moment. So it's a release, it's freedom.
Yeah, I've had opportunity to work with survivors. You know, I'm a survivor myself, and I've had the opportunity to work with survivors utilizing poetry. That's my thing. Utilizing poetry and therapy, you know, together. And I always tell when I start a journey with a client or with a survivor, and we talk about the things, and I've heard some like horrific stories, you know, I've told some horrific stories, and when I get them starting with just basic, just journaling, just not even, you know, like not even putting anything in poetic form, but just journaling. And I say, this is your opportunity to be the most honest with yourself. And I think that art, you know, whether it's music, whether it's hip hop, you know, whatever creative form, it's when you can be the most honest with yourself and you can have that breakthrough and see that, you know, that you're going to be okay. Because in those situations when you're in that relationship and when someone kind of literally has their foot on you, you know, you can't see past and see that there is a place where you're going to be okay and what that looks like. And art is a way for you to kind of, you know, forge that and create that space where, all right, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to survive this. So talk a little bit about when you came to that moment where you were ready to leave and start talking about your story and the response by others, you know, those who were supportive and those who weren't supportive, and how that impacted you in telling your story.
So unfortunately for me, I've been in a couple of domestic violence situations. And the first time I didn't speak out during the marriage. So what I ended up suffering with was people who didn't believe me because I hadn't told anyone in 12 years about what I was suffering with at home except like one person. And so what I dealt with was everyone divorcing me when I decided to divorce him, being very alone, having to rebuild my life. So when it happened again, I was even very clear with him, like I'm telling people, even in the midst of it, when we were still living together and I'm still suffering with it and trying to figure out how to get him out of my life, I was telling him, like, listen, I won't be silent this time. I will share my story. I will tell people, because this is absolutely ridiculous that you would put your hands on me in this way. And it's just been kind of crazy because I learned from my therapist and just different supporters and domestic violence advocates that they don't beat everybody. They don't put their hands on everybody. They put them on the special ones, I guess, or whatever it was about me that made him abuse me. He didn't do that to certain other women that he had dated that I socialized with. And so what I was dealing with was other women that are supposed to come to my rescue and support me as a fellow black woman, like, you're lying, oh no, I don't believe you, and almost victimizing me for speaking out. And I'm like, what did I do to present myself as a liar? Like, I'm a very genuine, honest person. Like, why would you think that I would make this up about somebody, you know? And so it's been very difficult, like, you know, social media attacks, inbox threats, you know, so it's been quite the experience. And I've just learned who my true friends really are in this situation and who I really can depend on. So, but I encourage anyone that is suffering with domestic violence, speak out. Like, it is the best way. It's actually allowed me to heal through it so much faster than the last time. Like, and because the last time it must have been almost 2 years before I had gotten to a point where I was like, okay, I want to make music. Like, now, when it happened recently to me, like, I was able to flip that switch. I had my coping mechanisms built in and I was ready to fight. Like, no, it's not gonna happen to me, and I'm gonna make sure it don't happen to the next girl either.
Okay.
I know, right?
Right, like, okay.
Right? Tell me about your experience and you speaking out and what that felt like, and people who were one way or the other.
So, for me, it never got physical, you know, thankfully, but no form of abuse is, you know, should be okay. And I didn't always see it that way. I had became very content, you know, very complacent with the situation because it was convenient. And your livelihood should never be at the expense of somebody else. Your mental, physical, emotional state shouldn't be controlled or, you know, governed by somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't always see it that way. It actually, like you said, learning who's in your corner, because I have an auntie that I never spoke to. Like, I wouldn't call her for nothing, but for some reason, I felt like she was the only person I could turn to, because she was the one who was non-biased. Everybody else in my life that had already knew the situation, they never tried to encourage me to get out of it or, you know, anything like that. They basically told me, you know, you have to figure out like what's best for you and all of that. But I'm like, if I'm telling y'all I'm being abused, if I'm telling you that I'm hurting, and all you can say is, well, you know, figure it out. Like, you're not really offering any help. That's dismissive. That's passive. So I had to just come to a point where I got fed up, and I said, hey, I'm really uncomfortable, and do I want to spend the rest of my life like this? Because it was, for me, it was over a job. Like, I just wanted to work somewhere, and the people who was over that job, I was being verbally abused because they felt like they had given me that position. And I was like, you know what? I'm talented. I do have a voice. I am capable. And being able to recognize that is important, or you will be stuck. You will be complacent. You'll constantly let somebody else dictate to you how far you can go, how great you are. And that's why a lot of people get caught up in those situations, because they can't see themselves beyond what somebody else is telling them about themselves.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I just had to find for myself, like, hey, I'm great beyond this, and I'm me. Like, everything that I'm capable of, everything that I possess, nobody can take that away from me. So,
Absolutely.
For me, I knew I was in a dangerous situation when my boyfriend dragged me, and I still had the staples in my stomach for my C-section. I knew then he had no cares for me. You know, I had a horrible labor. I was close to death, you know, so to come home and be close to death again, it was like, it was time to go. And then I had a daughter. Like, how can I raise her going through this violence and tell her that she needs this certain type of male when she grows up, but I don't have it? Because your children, they watch you. This is how they truly learn, you know, by example. I'm her mother, so how can I tell you that? But I'm dealing with this, you know. And I was scared. I was 22. I had a baby. I had nothing but my child. So when I left her dad, all I had was her. That's it. I had to sleep on my mother's couch, you know. And it was kind of like, I had moments where I almost went back because I got tired of being in that situation, you know. But I knew I had to go. I had to leave him. I was gonna be dead, you know. So it took a minute, you know. It took a couple weeks, a couple months for me to get over everything, you know. But when I got over it, that's when I felt free. That's when I felt like I made the right decision. Well, I knew I made the right decision, you know. I had to deal with him not being a part of my child's life for almost 7 years, you know. But he grew up, and now he's doing for her, and they have their relationship, you know. But, you know, it hurted me that he didn't want to be a part of her life because I didn't want to be with him, you know. And then, you know, your child always wants you to be with the father and stuff. So I dealt with things mentally, and I really didn't have too many people to talk to. But when I did, I was blessed, and I had people that supported me. My daughter has godfathers, so she has good male influences in her life, uncles, cousins. So I just made the best out of it.
and I feel like that comes back down to self-preservation. If you're in a relationship but you're not really there, or you're mentally unstable, or you're emotionally unstable, how can you be good in that relationship? Mm-hmm. And if that person is responsible for putting you down in that way, this person isn't right for you. Like you mentioned, like you have to be able to know like when enough is enough, because if you don't have yourself together, you can't take care of yourself, you can't put any love into this relationship.
And one thing I want to focus on, something you said, you're like, you don't want to be dead. Like, we the lucky ones. Like, we are the lucky ones. When I left my husband, there was a news story on where there was a guy and a girl, they were in a relationship and she was missing. And the guy is on the news crying, he out looking for her. And then 3 weeks later, they found her in the closet, in his closet, dead for 3 weeks. Now, you out looking for her, but you done killed this girl. Like, we are the lucky ones. Like, even though I'm prosecuting my abuser now, like, it could very well have been my murder trial. You know, like, it could have been just 1 second too long strangling me, and I wouldn't be here right now today talking to y'all. You know, and so we have to remember that, like, it's not just words. Like, words are powerful. Words turn into actions. Actions can get very violent, and actions can turn into ending your life. And there are a lot of people that are not here because of terrible situations. They didn't have, you know, the power to walk away from them. So
I think it's also important to know too that when you're talking about domestic violence, and because people look at domestic violence just as physical, it's a physical act, but it encompasses so much more. There's even, like, if you look at the domestic violence wheel and the different areas of what domestic violence represents and what abuse represents, you know, like there's sexual assault. Like, people don't believe that you can be sexually assaulted by a partner, you know, or male privilege when they're making decisions for you. Like, my daughter's father wouldn't allow me to order food from a male waiter when we were in a restaurant.
Wow.
You know, or if there was any male relatives, you know, around, like, I would have to wait for him to talk to them first before I could talk to them. You know, that was him exercising his male privilege, which is abuse. You know, economic abuse. You know, when they've isolated you from any opportunities for you to be self-sustainable. And, you know, when you say you were sleeping on your mom's couch and you're like, I don't want to be like this with my child, you know, maybe I should go back so that I can have somewhere to live. That's a real reality, you know, and it's abuse, you know, verbal abuse. That's a real reality, and it can have just as much impact traumatically on someone years down the line as physical scars can. You know, but people don't realize that or are mindful of that. And I think, like, even with listening to all our stories, the most important thing is that the one thing that we wanted when we were contemplating that exit strategy was that we wanted validation, you know, and we wanted to be heard. And sometimes we didn't get that. You know, eventually we did, but sometimes we didn't get that. And unfortunately, the places that we get that from is other survivors.
And then just not having people believe you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what I gotta lie for?
Yes.
I don't even want to be in this situation.
like, it's embarrassing. Yeah. It's embarrassing.
No.
Like, I felt like I'm this powerful woman. I'm presenting myself as I'm Miss Carmen, and I am woman, hear me roar, in a sense. And then, like, now I gotta come out and be like, dang, but this dude did this to me. You know?
I also think tradition makes you lie too. You know, I felt like I can't even really say I was deeply in love with my daughter's father. I think that I felt like I was pregnant. I was supposed to be with her father, and we were supposed to be married. Now, did I want that? I can't say if I did or not realistically, but tradition-wise, this is what I'm taught.
You were conditioned to believe that if I have a child with this person, I'm supposed to be with this person.
And that's the biggest thing too. Like, conditioning, people don't realize it, but that'll put you in a state of confinement, and that'll put you in a state of suppression.
Absolutely.
Because you're conditioned to think, I should be in this type of relationship. I should be doing this a certain way. But if you're being hurt or abused, you shouldn't. Like, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people, like you said, will stick in situations because they feel like it's what they have to do.
That's why I wrote that line in greatness, destined to be all of me, not just what I'm allowed to be. Like, that is a real line. Like, I live that. Like, everything I want to be, I'm going to do it. That's why I say be who you want to be. Who you want to be. Not what they are prescribing for you as what is supposed to be the model. because I thought I was supposed to go to college, graduate, get married, be the little, hey, la la la, we're just Mr. and Mrs., here we are, you know. And then when things didn't go as planned, when I couldn't get pregnant, you know, when now I don't have the baby, uh-oh. You know, so it's like, now it's like doing what you want to do is got to be the new norm. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Like, we got to throw out all of these expectations and, you know, pre-planned destinies for Black women. Like, you know, we don't all have to be in the kitchen all day cooking and, you know. Like, you know, you just be whoever you want to be and be your best version of yourself. I think that's the takeaway here. Be the best version of yourself, because that's the only way you're going to be happy, is if you're the best version of you, you know, and not trying to be somebody else, you know.
Or trying to please somebody else.
Yeah.
You know?
I can only be me, and if you ain't happy with this, look.
I think also, just to piggyback on what you're saying, like, the most empowering thing that you can say to a survivor is, I believe you. You know, like, and I always tell that, you know, to people, like, when they talk about a traumatic event and about surviving a violent relationship, you know, like, I believe you. Like, in my situation, you know, I was a licensed therapist. I had a master's degree, you know, and I'm in an ambulance with EMT techs who are, you know, working on me, and I was brutally kicked in my head, like 20 times, punched, and I'm apologizing to these techs. And I'm apologizing to the ER doctors, and I'm apologizing to the social worker, because I'm like, I should have been smarter than this. You know, that I'm wasting your time. I know all of this. I'm a therapist. I know all of this, you know. And what they told me was, you know what, this can happen to anybody. I believe you. You know, and for me in that moment, you know, that kind of like, okay, I'm okay with this. I can get better, I can be okay, I can, you know, transition to something more, you know. And that also ties into the greatness, you know, as women, like, we are survivors, you know, and we can be so much more.
Thank you guys for joining us for this debrief of greatness. I want to thank you, Kelly, for coming out. Appreciate you. Thank you, K Rose, and thank you to Lakia Nicole. It takes a lot to share your story, and I definitely appreciate you sharing it with me and sharing it with my followers. If you are in a situation similar to ours and you feel like you need help, there are tons of resources. We're going to have some links in the bio on my page. So if you feel like you are in a situation that you need help getting out of, please reach out, and we will do our best to help you. Thank you.